Let's go through it. I've got 20 practice questions I want to talk about. So let's see if we can work on it together. I really appreciate audience interaction, so don't make me answer these myself, all right? If you know what the answer is, or you think you know what the answer is, let's do a group vote. Awesome. I already got people putting it in. Just do the letter. That's all I want. You don't even need to do the answer, just the letter, okay? So this first one, I got a lot of D's coming in already, so crypto shredding. What is the correct term for the process of deliberately destroying the encryption keys used to encrypt data? Definitely crypto shredding. Yes, you answered correctly. The act of crypto shredding means destroying the key that was used, thereby making the data essentially impossible to recover. Good job remembering that. I know we talked about that one. Next. What was it? Brad. Yeah, poor key. Points to Brad for being the funniest student I've had. Thank you. Yes. Poor key management would definitely be accidentally destroying the key. That's poor key management. Very true. When a conflict between parties occurs, which of the following is the primary means of determining the jurisdiction in which the dispute will be heard? Ooh, this is a good one. This is a good one. What do you guys think? Contract? Between parties. Yes. Yes. Keyword. The key word there in that question was between parties. So contracts between parties can establish the jurisdiction. Maybe I should disappear. Contracts between parties can establish the jurisdiction for resolving disputes. Primacy in determining jurisdiction. If it's not specified in the contract, other means will be used. And then tort law refers to civil liability suits. The idea of tort is standing up for victims. Like tort law is criminal law, civil liability stuff. Common law refers to laws regarding marriage, and then criminal law refers to violations of a state or federal criminal code. Which of the following is a federal law enacted in the United States to control the way financial institutions, keyword there, keyword, financial, and then dealing with private information of individuals? Okay, so I've got a couple A's, and if you remember, here's where they try to trick you. Let me come back on screen for a second. This is one of those trick questions that ISC Squared throws at you. Just because the keyword here was financial institution. The payment card industry, PCI DSS, okay, has to do with policies, laws, and regulatory compliance for payment card processing, okay? And this question, you have to read it all the way through because the end of the question actually has the specific point of view that's going to give you the right answer. It's not just about financial institutions, but also that it's dealing with private information of individuals. So we have to remember, okay, what were the laws for finance, but also the protection of individuals, okay? And so that's going to be the GLBA, the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, because that's the one, okay, that targets U.S. financial insurance institutions and requires them to protect account holders' private information. And so it says, you know, the cool thing about this site is that it tells you why the wrong answers are wrong. PCI DSS refers to credit card processing requirements. So you were definitely good there, and I had a C, so D got it right. And then Carla said D, the Consumer Protection Act. That's the Consumer Protection Act, while providing oversight for the protection of consumer private information, is limited in scope. So it's not a full-blown federally mandated law like GLBA is. Okay? Next. Ooh, let me disappear. I'm going to keep disappearing. Which of the following best describes the CSA CCM and not the hockey jersey makers? The cloud controls matrix. Which of the following best describes the CSA CCM? And we've got a couple answers here. So let's take a look. A set of regulatory requirements for cloud service providers. Okay, that could be the answer. A set of software development lifecycle requirements. I'm going to say no to that one because the CCM does not have to do with software development lifecycle. Security controls framework that provides mapping and cross relations with the main industry accepted security standards, regulations, and controls framework. D says C. I'm going to agree. Yes. Correct, D. Thank you so much. It is a cross-reference, many industry standards, laws, and guidelines. That's what the cloud controls matrix is. We talked about how it mapped 17 different domains and like 150 something subdomains that all have to do with standards, laws, and guidelines, policies and procedures, and best practices. Everything is all in one huge document. Okay. What is an audit standard for service organizations? An audit standard. This is a tough one. I don't think I specifically said this answer during class. Okay, so I've got a B and I got a D. So the cool thing here, yes. All right, so I've got B's and D's. And the thing is that a SOC 1 report and a SOC 2 report, oh, I don't want to actually click the wrong answer. The SOC 1 report and the SOC 2 report are a reporting, okay? They report on audits. Whereas the SSAE 18, that is what the standard is. That's what the audit standard is. So both SOC 1 and SOC 2 are reporting formats. This is just how you give information. We talked about the difference between SOC 1, 2, and 3. But they are based on the SSAE 18 standard. And that's basically, that's it. So just memorizing the fact that SSAE 18 is the audit standard and that the SOC 1 and 2 and 3, those are reporting based on that standard. So we said SOC 1 is financial and all the auditing stuff. SOC 2, types 1 and 2 reports. And I want to make sure that we talk about this. I think I did mention it when we talked about the SOC reports, but types 1 and type 2. Type 1 is a snapshot of a specific point in time, okay? Like a specific day or time, right? Or maybe like a month. Whereas the type 2 report takes place over a period of time, like 12 months. Okay, so reporting for 12 months. So that's the difference between SOC 2 type 1 and type 2. All right. What type of solutions enable enterprises or individuals to store data and computer files on the internet using a storage service provider rather than keeping the data locally on a physical disk, such as a hard drive or tape backup? This one, SOC 1 itself, SOC 2. Yeah. Yes. You're right, Ken. Thank you. Thank you for adding that in, Ken. You're absolutely right. Okay, so we got B. Yeah. Do we have anybody that agrees? I am also inclined to pick B. And so, yes, you're absolutely right. There is a similarity between those two answers, A and B, online backups or cloud backup solutions. And so the trick question here is literally in the question. The word says what type of solution. So it's not going to be A, because online backups are not a solution. Cloud backup is a solution. Local meaning private, and you can have a private cloud. Yes, that's absolutely correct. Online backups can be local. Just because they're online doesn't mean it's going to some cloud service provider and things of that nature. So cloud backup solutions enable enterprises to store their data and computer files on the internet using a storage service rather than storing data locally. This has the added benefit of providing access to data should infrastructure or equipment at the primary business location be damaged in some way that prevents accessing or restoring that data locally. And then online backups and removable hard drives are other options, but do not by default supply the customer with ubiquitous access. And then masking, it's not masking because masking is a technology used to partially conceal sensitive data. So you're dead on with that one. Next question. What is a set of technologies designed to analyze application source code and binaries for coding and design conditions that are indicative of security vulnerabilities? What set of technologies designed to analyze application source code and binaries are indicative of security vulnerabilities? Okay. Analyze application source code. We've got an A, dynamic. Okay. I got two A's. Do I have anybody that agrees or disagrees? I got a third A. Let's go for it. Not A. Catherine says B. And that is true, Paul, with B as well. And I'll explain why it's not D. So it's not A because we talked about how dynamic application security testing is taking a look at an application while it's running. Okay? You can't perform source code and binary review while an application is running. That is a static test. Static tests mean that we're reviewing source code and binaries to detect problems before the code is loaded into memory and run. Okay? Right there. So that's the difference. Secure coding is simply the idea that you're doing best practices while you're developing, while you're writing your code. And that's straight from the software development lifecycle, making sure that you're baking in security through each phase of the SDLC. That's secure coding. And then if you remember OWASP, that's the Open Web Application Standard and Protocol. Like OWASP gives you those top 10 major threats against an application. So using OWASP, you can use OWASP to perform your source code review looking for the threats that or the vulnerabilities that are defined in OWASP. But OWASP isn't the actual security testing. That is static application security testing. So I hope that one makes more sense. Which of the following is always in italics? Whenever you see something in italics, that means pay extra attention to it, especially during the test. So which of the following is always available to use in the disposal of electronic records within a cloud environment? Okay, let's pause on this question for just a second and clarify what D is asking. She's saying static is pre and dynamic is post. Certainly static is pre. Dynamic isn't necessarily so much post as it is during. Okay? Like dynamic application security testing is happening while an application is running. So you're in some sort of sandboxed environment. You're in a testing environment. You're not live. It's not a production environment. And it's running so that you can analyze how it functions, what's happening while it's functioning, and that kind of thing. All right, cool. I'm glad you get it. Good. She says, okay. All right, so back to our question. I've got a C and I've got a B. And C is actually the answer here. And I'm going to tell you why. Encryption can always be used in a cloud environment. You can't physically destroy something while it's in the cloud. Overwriting something is difficult in the cloud because of version control and multiple locations and mirroring and that kind of thing. And then degaussing is another aspect of physical destruction, right? Degaussing is that microwave emitter that literally pops the physical portion of a hard drive and makes it unable to be read. It like demagnetizes it is what happens. So degaussing and physical destruction are both the same thing. Overwriting can happen, but it's difficult, and it doesn't necessarily lead to the proper disposal. But encryption can, right? Because we talked about crypto shredding. Encrypting something and then destroying the key for unencryption. That essentially isolates it and makes it completely unreadable and unavailable. All right, let's do two more and then take our 10-minute break. What is the process of replacing sensitive data with unique identification symbols and addresses? Okay, this is one of the first really tricky questions that always gets people. Is the difference between obfuscation and tokenization. Okay? We got some CCC. Okay, so we got C's. Think real close about this one. Replacing sensitive data with unique identification symbols and addresses. So think about, yes. All right, I've got one person that says D. I've got an A. So I'm going to explain why it's not A. It's not obfuscation. It's actually tokenization. Tokenization. Okay? And the reason why it's tokenization is because of this right here. These keywords. Unique. It replaced with unique identification symbols and addresses. When you think back to the definition of tokenization, it's a way of hiding and concealing sensitive data, but by representing it with a placeholder. We talked about removing sensitive data and replacing it with a non-sensitive token. And the token itself is what it's saying right here. It's identification symbols and addresses. Okay? And then for the people that said, so I had one person say randomization. Randomization and then obfuscation are also means of concealing information, but they're done quite differently, meaning that obfuscation masks. It's a masking technique. You're hiding the information. Randomization is usually used in a testing environment where you have to have some data to be tested. to properly test an application, you have to have data on the back end, but it doesn't necessarily need to make sense. It doesn't need to be real data. It doesn't need to be like real people's names and phone numbers and credit card numbers and stuff. Randomization is basically taking information and replacing it with random identification. Now, if the question had said, what is the process of replacing sensitive data with random identification symbols and addresses, the answer would have definitely been randomization. But because it said sensitive data with unique identification symbols, that's going to be tokenization. And if it had mentioned anything about masking, then you would have definitely known that it was talking about obfuscation. And then it doesn't say why elasticity is not the right answer, because this is that one answer that's just way off. Elasticity has to do with spreading out your resources, making sure that you're able to scale, especially when it comes to the cloud and you have a massive ingress of customers and people connecting to your servers or connecting to your service in general. Rogers, my answers are 100%. All were wrong. Oh my gosh. That's okay. Listen, the first time that you go to start practicing through the practiced questions, an assessment test or practice test, they're meant to be extra hard because you not only need to train yourself to know what the right answer is, but you also have to understand why the wrong answers are wrong. And I keep saying that. And I'll talk more about it after our 10-minute break near the end of the class when we go over some test-taking strategies. So just hold on to that until after. All right, last question, then we'll take our 10-minute break. Which of the following represents U.S. legislation enacted to protect shareholders? All right, so here's another question that has to do with protecting people. So shareholders and public from enterprise accounting errors and fraudulent practices. Yes, right off the bat, I got 2 C's. That's absolutely the right answer. Anything that has to do with finance, anything that has to do with banking or something of that nature. And this law was specifically designed to protect those shareholders and protect public users and customers from accounting errors and anything fraudulent that happens within that financial institution or that company, anything shady that affects the business as a whole. You, the customer, are not going to be affected or be held responsible or liable or have to pay any penalties or fees, specifically because of this law right here, which was enacted to protect shareholders and customers and the public from those types of malicious activities or mistakes, accounting errors, and then certainly fraudulent practices or something like that. Okay, cool. So we've gone through 10 practice questions so far. That's really awesome. Let's take our top of the hour 10-minute break, and when we get back, we're going to finish out our next 10 practice questions. We'll keep talking about some stuff. And then I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk about best practices for preparing for the test and, during the test and that kind of thing. So we'll just have, a little bit more to go, and you guys are done. You've reached the end. So go ahead and take your 10-minute break, and I'll see you back here in just a little bit. Thanks. Hey there, welcome back. Coming back from our 10-minute break, and we're going to start our second hour here, the final day of CCSP. Let's go ahead and just jump right back into where we were. And let's go on to the next question. I don't need that anymore. All right, cool. Next question. Boom. Here we go. Let's keep it going. Blank focuses on security and encryption to prevent unauthorized copying and limitations on distribution to only those who pay. Okay. Focuses on security. Yes. Information rights management. Boom. In my mind, this is a really easy one. We've already talked about what degaussing is. And we talked about that that's a physical destruction technique using microwave. We talked about what masking was, which was replacing sensitive data, right? Masking data so that it can't be seen. Bit splitting is the concept. Let's see if it says it down here. Yeah, it's a method of hiding information because you're breaking it up. So when you break stuff into separate... bit splitting is the concept of taking data and breaking it apart, and then taking those pieces and breaking it apart further. I don't know if you're going to see bit splitting as an answer to a question. If you do, I'm going to be super surprised about it. But just understanding that bit splitting is a method of hiding information across multiple boundaries or geographical regions. But information rights management, also known as digital rights management or DRM, is designed focused on security and encryption as a means of preventing unauthorized copying and limiting distribution of content to authorized personnel, usually the purchasers, right? So information rights management is directly related to data leak prevention. Next question. Let's keep going. When using an IaaS solution, infrastructure as a service, which of the following is not an essential benefit for the customer? Not. Whenever I see these questions, is the first thing I see is like, they're trying to trick me. They're trying to trick me. All of these are right except for one. One is wrong, and that's the right answer. So they're trying to get me. So infrastructure as a service, I got people saying C. Which of the following is not an essential benefit? Energy and cooling efficiencies. I'm going to say yes. Oh, and they got me. Self-fulfilling prophecy. I got that one wrong because I knew I was going to get it wrong. So in infrastructure as a service, the customer must still maintain licenses. Okay, so what is it saying here? Removing the need to maintain a licensing library. That's, I see. Okay, all right. We got one per... Oh, we actually had a few A's. Awesome. Yes, you were absolutely right. Removing the need to maintain a licensed library. Because in infrastructure as a service, the customer must still maintain the licenses. Where as soon as you go to platform and as soon as you go to software as a service, the customer does not need to manage the license library. That's more of the cloud service provider's responsibility. So this question definitely hollers back to understanding the shared responsibility model for the different solutions. And then whose responsibility? Is it the customer's responsibility or is it the cloud service provider's responsibility? So this is a good question to gauge some of that. Okay. Which of the following lists the STRIDE threat model? The STRIDE threat model. I know we talked about this. It's an acronym. So which one has it in the proper order? They all start with spoofing. They all start with spoofing. So far they're all correct. Tampering. They're all the same. And then we see non-repudiation. So we know D's not the right answer. Oh, I didn't mean to actually click that. We know D is not the answer because it's not STN, right? So we know it's repudiation because I don't even know what that word is. Refutation isn't a word that makes sense here. So spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, and then we have denial of service, or we have distributed denial of service, and then we have elevation of privileges. So yep, we got A. Everybody's saying A. That's what it is. You're absolutely right. And then it says it down here in proper order. So just make yourself an index card. That's absolutely what I do. Absolutely what I do. And I even pulled it up right here. Here's my, oh, my green screen won't let you see my index cards. How crazy. Okay, so there's my pink ones. I've got bright yellow index cards, but you can't see them. But I have one right here that's the Stride model, and it lets me know the letters. So I always have my note cards with me. I like to make flashcards so that my wife can help me study. Um, Sometimes I even let my kids help me study. They think it's funny just because they have no idea what I'm talking about, but they know that the answer's on the card, so they feel smart because they know the answer, sometimes even when I don't, and they're quizzing me on new material. So they think that's funny. But yeah, this is one of those examples where you definitely want to make an index card just to remind yourself about what, the letters in the Stride threat model stand for. Which of the following takes advantage of the information developed in the BIA, the Business Impact Analysis? Okay, so we're trying to figure out which of the following takes advantage of information that was developed in the Business Impact Analysis. And we started talking about Business Impact Analysis way at the beginning. And how it helps us generate, oh, Roger's saying risk analysis. I got another B. Is it B? Yes, you're absolutely correct. Among other things, the business impact analysis gathers asset valuation information. It's crucial to risk management because and we talked about data discovery. We talked about understanding all of your assets and having a valuation placed on them. You don't know how much risk you have until you understand all of the things in your organization or business that are potentially at risk. So the business impact analysis is directly related to risk analysis. Good job with that one. Which of the following is a device that can safely store and manage encryption keys and is used in servers, data transmission, and log files? Let's see. Safely store and manage encryption keys. Yes, we talked about this one yesterday, so that should have been fresh. That should have been real fresh. Definitely the TPM. One common type, oh, it even says it right down here. One common type is TPM. We talked about that. Can be found on enterprise workstations and laptops. And that a hardware security module is a completely separate device that can safely store, or it can be separate and it can be attached to the motherboard, but it safely stores and managing encryption keys for crypto procedures. Okay, and what does it say? There's no such term as Trusted Operating System Module, TOS, right? So there's a completely made up answer to try to trick you. Okay, that's not even a real thing. And then public and private keys are used with asymmetric encryption. So that has really nothing to do here with, a public key is an encryption key, but it's not storing. That's the hardware security module. What is a type of cloud infrastructure that is provisioned for open use by the general public and is owned, managed, and operated by the cloud provider? Ooh. Here are our cloud infrastructures. Now, right off the bat, you know that personal isn't even one. Right? The only actual cloud infrastructures are private, public, and hybrid. And sometimes you can see multi, all right? But multi is just another name for hybrid. So this would be public, absolutely. And why? Keyword is right there. It literally says it in the question. General public. Oh, the other one missing here as well, I didn't even think about it, is a community cloud. a community cloud, which the example I gave during the class was a university, right? A university having multiple locations. And I'm in North Carolina, so I like to think of University of North Carolina and how they have different campuses, right? You've got UNC Chapel Hill, which didn't even make it into March Madness this year. Super disappointed about that. Regardless, you've got Greensboro, and you've got Wilmington, and you've got Pembroke, and all these different types, not just Chapel Hill. Well, all of the UNC campuses are all connected using a community cloud, okay? Because they're all relevant to the same organization. But they're different locations. They obviously have their different identities. Just because they're considered like UNC, they have different campuses. Okay, so that would be an example for community cloud. So just remember, right? Private, public, hybrid, and community. And then if you hear multi-cloud, just associate multi-cloud with hybrid cloud. What is a type of assessment that employs a set of methods, principles, or rules for assessing risk based on non-numerical categories? Okay, first keyword that pops out at me for this question specifically is going to be non-numerical. Non-numerical. Okay, so yes, I've got a couple B's already. You're absolutely right. When we're talking about numerical categories or an actual value, that's a numerical value that's placed on something, we're talking about quantitative. And I think of the word quantity. Quantity, how many? So I just associate quantity, quantitative with numbers, right? Values. Whereas quality, qualitative, these are non-numerical categories. These are your low, medium, and high, right? That kind of thing. You're placing a non-numerical category or level to something. Non-mathematical says that one that uses mathematical categories is quantitative. Yes, there's no such thing as a hybrid assessment. No such thing as hybrid. And then we also already know that SOC 2 is a audit report. Okay? So audit report, that has nothing to do with employing a set of methods, principles for assessing risk. What is the term that describes the assurance that a specific author actually created and sent a specific item? Okay, we know, let me read this, finish reading, right? Sent to a specific recipient. So from a specific person to a specific recipient, and that the message was successfully received. I talked about this once, a funny word. Yep. Okay, cool. I've got the C's rolling in right now. You're absolutely correct. For the people that are participating, you're killing it. It's non-repudiation. You're absolutely correct. Non-repudiation means that a party to a transaction cannot deny that that party took the action. They cannot deny that that is the entity or the identity, the user account, the IP address, the MAC address, all kinds of things. All kinds of things can point straight to proving non-repudiation. Cannot deny that an action took place and that that party is the person or party that did that thing. Which of the following represents the correct set? Oh man, I literally just gave you this one. I literally just gave you this one. Boom. It's B. It's public, private, I said private. Public, private, hybrid, and community. Okay, there we go. That one's pretty simple. Joint, internet, and external are not cloud models. Yes. They're not cloud models. That was an easy one. Which of the following terms best describes a managed service model where software applications are hosted by a vendor? Come on. Yeah, absolutely. Again, read the question. all the way through, because a lot of times you're going to see a hint, a keyword, some specific piece of information that's going to point you at the answer. And this one just spells it out right there, software. And in the shared responsibility model, we know that the cloud service provider has all the responsibility when they're the ones that are providing a service, a software as a service. So software as a service. Public and private or cloud deployment models, yeah, public, private. And then infrastructure as a service does not provide applications of any type, because infrastructure as a service is simply what? The most basic structure. Everything, the platform and the software and whatever applications you have are built on top of the infrastructure that you were provided from the cloud service provider.